is KC Sports Network, proudly presented by Emprise Bank.
Hello and welcome into another edition of Fremont. I am John Kurtz, joined by Derek Young and Cole Manbeck. Not a fun episode today. K-State loses in Columbia 30-27. A 61-yard field goal at the gun beats K-State. The Wildcats fall to 2-1 on the season. It is definitely a game that is going to have a lot of people drowning their sorrows. And of course, if you are doing that, make sure to get your 360 vodka or your Ben Holiday bottled in bond bourbon from our friends at Holiday Distillery. By the way, shout out to them. They invited us to a nice little tailgate before the game, so we got to get over there and get some drinks, get some food. It was a really good time. A ton of hospitality shown there. So we love them. Please go support them as well. Great K-State folks there who are going to make sure that you get taken care of, whether you are a bourbon guy or gal, whether you're more 360 vodka guy or gal. Either way, they've got you covered. So Holiday Distillery, 360 vodka, Ben Holiday bottled in bond bourbon. We appreciate the hospitality. Cole probably should have pocketed some for after the game on the way back. Neither of us were driving, so we were just there to, rehash this one, everything that happened in this game. I'll be honest, the game really played out, I think, in a lot of ways very similarly to what we expected. Because, Derek, you talked a lot about, hey, I think Eli Drinkwitz has probably been sandbagging a little bit here. They put a lot into this K-State game and didn't look all that good through 2 weeks because of it. I think that was very clear. But K-State weathered the storm, and they came through and had a touchdown lead late in the game, and on multiple occasions had a chance to push that out to a 2-score lead. And I think that is really it. K-State was one play away probably from winning that game, pushing it out to a 2-score lead and winning the game. But they couldn't get that one play. You get up 24-17. Mizzou goes right back down, gets a field goal. You're not able to then score at that point. Even when you're trailing and you tie the game with a field goal, there's a chance there to get a touchdown. You have a delay of game call when it looked like Trayshawn Ward was probably set up to score if the play were actually run, if Will Howard gets it off a second sooner. I mean, it felt like K-State finished one play short of winning this game, and it would have been basically what we thought, a dogfight where Eli Drinkwitz put a ton into it. But instead, we're going to sit here for the next hour and probably rehash all of those little plays that could have flipped the game.
Yeah, one of the things I wrote is it's like this was a game with like butts. Like the offense did enough in the first half and really kept the team in it, but they didn't have that killer instinct when they went up 24-17, 24-20. And able to hit the final dagger on Missouri. Plus, Will Howard throws another interception. There's a couple other balls that were interceptable. One of his touchdowns was pretty good fortune. The first one on a tip from Phillip Brooks. A couple touchdowns were called back, I think 3. So as narrow as it was, there was also times where Kansas State had good fortune and overcame some things that didn't go their way because of self-inflicted wounds. So in a way, you could say they were one play away. On the flip side, it's like, man, there were some underlying other issues in there that are a bit concerning as well that they were able to avoid sometimes just on good fortune. The but on the defensive side of the ball is they really clamped down, I think, towards the end of the second quarter, really throughout the third quarter and part of the fourth quarter. There was a stream 7 or 8 drives where they're only allowing about 3 points. So that defense really stiffened. After what happened was the adjustment was made to all that preparation that you saw from Eli Drinkwitz and company in the first quarter, part of the second. Obviously, at some point, that preparation advantage runs out. Then what happens? Kansas State was the better team, but that head start by Missouri was good. So that was the butt for the defense. The special teams was really solid. You're probably the best of the 3 phases, the most consistent. But Chris Tennant comes up short on a 54-yard field goal. Jack Bloomer, I think, shanked a couple punts. So it also wasn't exceptional. And it's hard to win games when you get blown out in the explosive category and you lose the turnover battle, especially road games.
I go back and forth who I was more frustrated with from that game because the offense had its moments where it was very frustrating. The defense certainly had its moments, but as I think about it, guys, like we all predicted K-State to score 27 or 24 points. John, you had them 24-17. DY, you and I both had them winning with 27 points in a close game. And so the offense at the end of the day put up numbers against what's a top 20 defense with the second most returning production in college football. A number is at about what we probably expected going in. K-State averaged 5.5 yards per play. That's the fourth highest against Missouri defense over its last 16 games, dating back to the 2022 season, the beginning of that season. So at the end of the day, the offense squandered a lot of opportunities. So the way that it played out, you become very frustrated with the offense, especially when you have the ball at the 50-yard line, 1st and 10 with 2 minutes left, and you're in your 4-minute offense and you got a chance to just end that game, win it right there, and you go backwards on 3 plays, 4 yards. You lose 4 yards over 3 plays. You have a false start. You have a drop pass. It was a tough catch for Ben Sinnott down the field and kind of bracketed between 3 defenders. But, K-State just didn't make enough plays. And then you look at the defense. I mean, they gave up 30 points. Missouri didn't score 30 points against a Power 5 team all of last year. That's the most points that they scored. And Brady Cook averages 10.2 yards per pass. That's the most that he's had in his career against a Power 5 team. You give up 356 yards through the air. And it's a Missouri team coming into the game that had 5 plays or 20 or more yards through their first 2 games. They have 7 plays of 20 or more yards. And this game alone, the explosives killed you. You had communication issues on the back end. I get it. Like, it's the toughest team you played so far. It's the first road game. You're breaking in several new guys. And they got a dynamic talent at wide receiver in Luther Burden, and he beat you a couple times. Now, I don't fully understand having him single man on Sigel a couple different times, but that was a risk that K-State took, and it burned on one time, although Parrish busted the one coverage as well. So, I don't know, man. What frustrates me is every time K-State scored a touchdown, Missouri answered. So, like, when you thought they were taking control, you guys remember K-State got the first touchdown, and Missouri goes down in 6 plays and scores some 75 yards, 6 plays, explosives. Then the next time K-State scores a touchdown, Missouri answers right back. The first 2 plays of Missouri's next drive after K-State goes up 14-10 were passes of 41 yards and 27 yards that took them to the K-State 7-yard line. They scored a TD on 6 plays. And then K-State's last touchdown drive put the Wildcats up 24-17. First 2 plays out of the gate, you're thinking, all right, time for the defense to lock down, get a stop. First 2 plays went for 26 yards and 42 yards through the air to get to K-State 7. Now, credit to the defense, held them to a field goal, but it's just like you couldn't step up and make a play on either side of the ball when it really mattered most.
Yeah, I agree that both sides had their moments, and you can kind of waffle back and forth of where you might pin the game on. It's both, really, at the end of the day. That's the right answer. But I hearken back to, we've all said it in this podcast already, one play away. Well, this defense is replacing so many different pieces and the offense is not. If you need one play, this is a team equipped the way that they are equipped, that it should be the offense having the ability to do that.
Fair. I guess I would also...
Well, the offensive line.
Sure. I would kind of counter, though, and say, what are you facing? You're facing a pretty good defense, and you're facing, I mean, look, I think Brady Cook is better than what certainly Mizzou fans have made him out to be, and Eli Drinkwitz definitely feels that way, judging by his comments after the game. But, I mean, you gave up 350 yards passing to Brady Cook. Like, they have one real dude on offense. I think the rest is pretty comparable, honestly, to what K-State's offense is. They've got one guy, and you let him beat you twice for huge touchdowns. I don't know. I'm a little bit more frustrated probably with the defense in that regard, but it's very close. And I don't think I come out of it looking like, hey, we've got to really hone in. One side of the ball was the biggest problem. No, I think there are problems spread out all over the board, and coaching. I mean, frankly, I would throw this out there too. I mean, I think I'm going to make this statement. I think they got outcoached by Eli Drinkwitz in a game in which Drinkwitz took one of the worst delay of game penalties in the history of organized football. They still got outcoached by him in that game. And he got bailed out, obviously, by Mevis with the field goal after that. And Drinkwitz, took, to his credit, took the blame in postgame for that and said, hey, that was on me. That was terrible. But, I mean, they did. They were sloppier. They were less organized. I'm going back and rewatching the game last night, and I'm like, there was like a 3rd and 9 and a 3rd and 6 where you just run straight up the gut and then punt. Like, what? I mean, I don't know, man. There were some real head-scratching moments. And then obviously I think the one that stands out the most, because to me the play that bothers me the most is the delay of game, because that was going to be a touchdown that puts you up instead of just a field goal. I think that's probably the difference in the game. And somebody's got to get a freaking timeout there. Or I guess if you want to say like Will Howard needs to make sure that happens a second faster. Okay, that sounded like that was DY. You can speak to this. I'm sure it sounded like that was the explanation in post game, right? Was Will just said he thought he was going to be able to get it off and he didn't. But I mean, at some point that's coming down on somebody. So there were just I felt like too many moments where the coaching didn't shine through well enough, and I thought that's where K-State would have the big advantage and make the plays down the stretch when they needed to, because K-State's been a team that's been able to do that. Mizzou has not. I mean, that is where Mizzou screws it up. Like their fans, you could just tell that stadium, like, man, this is where we screw it up, and they didn't.
There are some coaching blunders for sure. I guess with the way that Kansas State's equipped, you have a secondary with 4 guys getting their first start against a Power 5 team when you need one play. I think this is a team built that the offense is the one that needs to make that play, the way this team is built.
There were a couple of significant coaching blunders in the last minute of that game. First of all, what K-State was doing defensively and going into a prevent defense, and it was almost like they didn't know Harrison Mevis is one of the best kickers in college football. He had struggled this year early on to start the year, but he's an All-American kicker, and he's made 2 56-yarders in his career. He is 11 of 15 from 50-plus yards in his career. He's got one of the best legs in college football. And K-State, I told you this, John, sitting by you. They crossed the 50. They're trying a field goal with him. And it was like K-State was just content to let them get across the 50-yard line. And here's where I got very frustrated, all right? Mizzou is at the 39-yard line, and K-State comes out in a prevent defense like they think Missouri is going to throw a Hail Mary. They were giving a 15-yard cushion on the receivers and giving them an easy 5-6 yard out route, which they could have easily ran with 6 seconds. Now they take the delay of game, but K-State lined right back up in a similar defense, and they would have gotten an easy out route if Brendan Mott doesn't knock the pass down. And then that shortens the field goal. You play boundary coverage. You force everything in bounds. They had no timeouts. You put your corners up close. You force the throw in bounds. The clock runs out. They can't spike the ball. By rule, you have to have 3 seconds to spike the ball. I didn't understand that. And the thing that Chris Kleiman and this staff is probably fortunate with that is going to go a little bit unnoticed because Mevis made the field goal. You had 2 number 8s on the field and Will Lee and Phillip Brooks on the field goal. And if that's missed, it's a 5-yard penalty. The ref threw the flag. They just didn't announce it. It's a 5-yard penalty, and they're kicking a 56-yarder. It's completely unacceptable. That cannot happen. Last time I recall that happening was in Manhattan when TCU did it to K-State. They got flagged for it, and K-State won the game. It helped them win the game. So those things really bother me, frankly, that happened for this coaching staff, which I think is a really good staff. Like, I just don't expect to see those things.
I've got no rebuttal, man. I don't think that was very good. I was disappointed in it, and I get it. I mean, we listened to Kleiman on the way home, and I heard a little bit of Will Howard. And look, for them, the correct attitude to take is like, hey, let's be calm. We're going to be okay. And Will said everybody was pissed off. I mean, it's not like they weren't upset by the game, but it was kind of like, Kleiman after this is one of those times where, like, I want a little bit more fire. I want a little bit more fire and brimstone. Like, hey, dude, like, that's a game that, yes, as I said after the game, I think Missouri probably deserved to win it, but they deserved to win it because K-State made too many mistakes and didn't take advantage of the opportunities they had when they were there. And, like, I mean, it pissed me off. I mean, as a guy who had to sit in the stands and walk back to the car through a sea of drunk, trashy Mizzou fans, I mean, it made me pretty mad. So I understand big picture this season, and I'm sure we're going to get to this eventually. Like, big picture this season, this loss is not really that consequential unless you really thought this team was going to the playoff. But everything's still out in front of them in the Big 12. But it's a game that I wanted. You don't get opportunities to play Mizzou very often, obviously. And it just, I'm after a game like that and losing like that, I'm looking for a little bit more hellfire and brimstone, but we didn't get it.
The players, what I can tell you from my observations after the game, being in that media, in the media area, which isn't a really good one, I'll tell you that much. Very crowded and very tiny. The players were visibly in pain, pissed off, like Will Howard suggested. But to your point, Chris Kleiman chose to emanate a different demeanor afterwards, one with a little bit more calmness. What I will say is he doesn't give a shit about what you need. He gives a shit about what his players need. So I've seen Kleiman pissed off after games, after losses. I've seen him calm after losses both times. What he is doing is what he thinks his players need in order to get better. That's all. He's in that moment. He's only doing what he thinks they need as a team to be better the rest of the way. And I don't think him, at least he didn't think that at that point, being angry, pissed off, Kleiman was the right move.
I get it, and I think he's probably right, because that fits in with his whole vibe, right? His aura is kind of as a player's coach, and positivity and loving up his guys and believing in his guys. So that's what he does. I get it. I feel like I'm in a lot of ways here to offer kind of the fan perspective on everything, and like I get it. I mean, I was hot after the. I mean, Cole can attest to that.
Calming the fans down isn't going to help him win games, but maybe calming his players down does. That's the way he's.
Yeah, no, I get it. I just hope. I guess the other part, DUI, to that with me is like I hope, and I'm sure there is, but I hope there's a little look in the mirror at some of the coaching mistakes that did happen, and be like I mean, you can't be doing that. You can't be doing that.
And to Cole's point, like I said, I think the way this team is, where the leadership is and experiences, if you need one play, it needs to come from the offense. But to Cole's point, the defense had a bad day for the most part against a really bad offense, historically, what you would expect from Brady Cook and Missouri offensively. And the offense still put up solid numbers against a really good defense.
Yeah, I guess the question to me, another thing maybe for discussion later on here, because I know we need to get to a break, but one of the questions will be to me, like, what is Mizzou? Like, is this last year's Mizzou, or is this Mizzou truly taking a step forward? Because if Mizzou has truly taken a step forward, then this really isn't that bad of a loss at all, because they'll probably be an 8 or a 9 win team. They're going to be 5-0 pretty soon here with LSU coming to town then after that. So if that's what Mizzou is, then this really is not that big of a deal. But
that's what I was going to say. That they'll be 5-0 in a couple of weeks, but it might be a little bit of a fluky 5-0.
Yeah, I mean, I still kind of feel like it's probably an 8-4. It's probably an 8-4 Mizzou team. If you had to make me guess, that's what I would say about it. All right, I'm not wearing my home field right now, but I was wearing my sweet new home field jacket on Saturday at the game. Unfortunately, it is now 0-1, but it looked good. Got some compliments on it from the folks that were in the K-State section. No, it's not getting retired. It's too damn sexy to retire, and that is the point. You need to go over and get yours at homefieldapparel.com. It's the lavender jacket. It's got the Pennant Willie logo on it. It's got EMA on the back. It's pretty great, but they've got all sorts of stuff, T-shirts, with all the different old school logos. If you prefer Sailor Willie, if you prefer Cocaine Willie, if you prefer Cat Script Basketball, they've got you covered at homefieldapparel.com. Use code 3MA23 for 15% off your first order. So we've even got the hookup. Tell them the 3MA sent you, people. Make sure that you get geared up for the rest of the season and wear what everybody else these days is wearing. homefieldapparel.com. You can also check out 100 plus other teams there if that is what you want. More on the K-State loss to Missouri coming up next.
Thanks for listening to KC Sports Network. Make sure you download our new app. Find it on the App Store or Google Play. Just search KC Sports Network.
One thing that seems to be a hot button issue after the game, at least judging from some of the fan reaction, and I didn't feel quite as strongly about this part as I think a lot of people did. And Cole, I'm going to turn to you on this because you looked into the PFF numbers here, but Will Howard's play, right? So he has the ball that's tipped up to Phillip Brooks for a touchdown, some fortune there, throws an interception where, K-State seemed to be really heavy into the screen game, I guess feeling like Mizzou was going to be pretty overly aggressive. Play there where he kind of, under pressure, it looked like some miscommunication, ball gets picked off. There were a couple moments like that throughout the game, and it did feel like Will threw probably 4 passes that could have been intercepted. But he said, Cole, am I getting this right, that Pro Football Focus listed it as Will Howard's best game of the last 2 years that he played?
Yeah, I mean, I think we can all attest that sometimes we question PFF and their numbers and have a little bit of discrepancy sometimes, but I'm just telling you guys, like, they graded him out with an 80.9 overall offensively. That's the best that he's had. I only looked back to all of his games in 2022 and then to date, so 9 games. That's the best that he's had. I mean, it's better than Oklahoma State. It's better than TCU down in Fort Worth. It's better than the Baylor game on the road when I thought he was really sharp. They graded him out that high, and then he had an 85.3 passing grade, which is also a career mark for Will as well. So, he graded out really well. Will, I'm looking at the numbers again. Yeah, I mean, his best passing grade by PFF in the last 9 games was 78.4 in the road game at TCU last year, and then he had an 85.3 against Mizzou. Look, I mean, PFF is looking at things like, drops as well, the pressure that's on him in a certain situation when they make their evaluations and grades. And I mean, I can recall specifically, Ben Sennett obviously had the major drop in the fourth quarter that would have gotten them a first down. Trayshawn Ward had a play that he needed to catch that would have went for 15 yards through traffic, and he dropped it. Ben probably, we think of Ben Sennett, he's an NFL player. He probably needs to make that catch when K-State's at the 50-yard line, the 1st and 10 play with 2 minutes left. It's a tough catch, no doubt about it, but a play he would probably tell you he needs to make. So you think about some of those, and you think about what Will overcame in that game. Like DY said earlier, they had 3 touchdowns taken off the board, and yet they still got a touchdown on every one of both those times that occurred. And he made some real big plays, in the passing game. I mean, they were in like a 2nd and goal from the 23 at one point in the game, and Will completed a pass to Phillip Brooks to get him to the 3 to get 3rd and goal, and then they do the jump pass to Ben Sennett. So yeah, Will was not you think about Will, he was hobbled, he was playing banged up for most of the second half. I think that impacted things as well for how K-State was calling the game. But yeah, I don't think Will was the problem. Now we can get into the Avery Johnson discussion and how they utilized him, but because I do question some of the ways they were going about that, but I think Will was fine.
Yeah, I don't think he was bad or anything like that, and he's probably catching too much flack if there's a lot of people that suggest that he is. I think he had a solid game. Calling it his best game of his career, I think, is obviously a little bit drastic in my opinion. And I do take PFF with a grain of salt just because to them, Patrick Mahomes is like the 10th best quarterback in the NFL. So some of their quarterback assessments in general to me are pretty bizarre, especially when you can't look at his, I guess, body of work and consider his best performances, because I can't remember any bad throws. And obviously it's a long time ago, so maybe it's just bad memory on my part. But man, he seemed perfect, and the decisions were perfect against both Oklahoma State and Baylor last year. Like, for them to not even be up there and this one in TCU to be up there, to me, is kind of silly, because I would consider his best games Oklahoma State and Baylor.
I think Baylor had a 78.4 overall grade at Baylor last year, and a 77. So it was right there. It's only like 2 percentage points.
I saw your numbers, but the Oklahoma State one was really low. I'm like, they scored 48 points, and he was all
I don't know about I was surprised by that as well, because I remember some absolute dimes by Will and the Deuce Mon. Yeah. So I think you can take into question some of those, but you also have to account. I mean, he throws for 270 against a good Missouri defense, 3 touchdowns, the 1 interception. I thought he made some nice plays, and he also was facing pressure again.
Part of it's they had to throw for 272 because they couldn't run the ball.
Yeah. I mean, that's a big part of it as well. And like the 3rd and goal, K-State's down 27-24. The 3rd and goal, they just busted the blocking, and a guy came untouched right at Will. He didn't even have a chance, and we didn't have K-State. K-State didn't even have guys in the end zone yet when Will was hit on that throw, so they had to settle for the field goal. Of course, they shouldn't even have been in the 3rd and 8, 3rd and goal, because they took that delay of game. But yeah, there were still some issues up front with pass pro. But I mean, at the end of the day, you only have 4 tackles for loss against a Missouri team that was top 20 in TFLs last year and both this year as well. So the offensive line maybe was a little bit better from the Troy game, but I was hoping for a little bit even more of an inspired performance.
I thought they got better. They got better at tackle. I think they might have regressed a little on the interior for whatever reason.
Well, I was just going to say on Will to put the ball on that. Yeah, I brought all that up, and I know there's a discrepancy on PFF grades. But I brought all that up to say, I mean, it probably suggests that like Will Howard was not top of the list of problems here. You know, I mean, I just saw some real overreaction on Will after the game, and I don't think that that's really fair. I thought he played well enough to win. To me, it's like the most disappointing thing to me is not getting it. It felt like there was he could have gotten that audible off a second quicker, even moving Trayshawn Ward over like a second quicker if there was just a little bit more urgency there, and him being like the veteran cerebral guy. Like that's a play I need Will Howard to make. I need that to not happen. But overall, he played well enough to win.
If I was going to quibble with Will Howard, it's aside from the decision making, which I think has been a little suspect at times this year, is that it seems like he's processing slower for whatever reason. Man, he's getting to some of these checkdowns late, and by the time that he gets it to him, they're covered up and he goes for a yard. I mean, there was a few times where I thought the swing pass to the running back, man, you go through your reads just a little bit quicker and see that sooner. You're not getting 1 yard, you're getting 5 or 6, and you're putting yourself at a much more manageable down and distance, especially when you can't run the ball. You need those.
Yeah, and I don't know if it was on Trayshawn because it looked like he needed to switch sides. If he switched the side just a second sooner and gets on the right-hand side of Will like he wanted him to, then they get that playoff in time. But, you know, we had to move him late there and he doesn't get it off. And I also wanted to say, John, I think you and I were the 3rd and 15 with a minute 40 left, and they threw it to Trayshawn Ward like within 2 seconds. And we were initially like, was that like a screen? Like they got there so quick. What was that play call? As I rewatched the game, K-State busted the blocking. They rushed 4. K-State had 6 guys in to protect, and they did a stunt, a twist, and K-State didn't protect Will. K-State didn't have anybody open yet, and Will didn't have anywhere to go. And I think part of the problem there was Trayshawn leaked out of the backfield too early. He should have stayed in and pass pro and protected. He leaked out, and the guy that he would have chipped came after Will. So there's just a lot of execution errors that I'm sure they'll pick up on film that mistakes like that end up costing you the game.
I will say the offensive line issues, I think, are more associated. Like I said, that I think they took a step forward as a whole, especially Carver Willis, the right tackle. But when they get into trouble the most is when they see more creative pressures. And I think the absence of Christian Duffy and having new faces in there, and then you have to shuffle around. I don't think the communication and the chemistry is there for the combinations that they are tossing out, because they're missing on like those stunts and stuff like that. They're just not passing them on to each other very well at all.
They absolutely are. You're right, DY. That's a huge issue with the pass pro is like teams are just stunning on them and they're not picking it up. And my other quibble would be, why the hell are you rotating the offensive line after the first series of the game? You march down the field, you score a touchdown. I thought Carver Willis was actually fine on the first drive, and the second drive they moved Cooper out to right tackle. Like, why? I don't believe in rotating offensive linemen and moving them all around unless it's an absolute necessity, because it's hard for guys they rely so much on communication up front and the cohesion and gelling. And when you're constantly moving guys and it's not necessary, I'm not a fan of that.
Well, another question I would raise here is because it seems like clearly some of the issues, as you guys have pointed out, were on the interior, and that happens when you have to move BB out to tackle. So again, this is a whole piece of like how much the injuries are really hurting right now. But like Andrew Langang, you know, why are we not seeing him? Like Taylor Potier, it sounds like was banged up, had an issue in practice this week, and was not 100% out there, and perhaps struggled a little bit because of it. Like what we heard glowing reviews about Andrew Langang. And I mean, I know that he had a medical issue last year. I'm not saying that it's been totally smooth sailing for him, but I just, you know, if we're going with the rotate thing, I would have just expected him to get a little bit more of a look there. But
I think I would, at least like to see him get a shot, because look, in the case of Hadley Panther, I just don't think he's a guy you need to be moving back and forth between the two sides. I think someone needs to stick to one side. That's tough to do. And he's still pretty young, and I just don't know if he's at that level to be able to make that transition. And obviously they think he is, but I think where he gets in trouble personally is when he's switching back and forth, because the techniques and the footwork are all different.
They're very bad. You got to get through this week with UCF, get to the bye week, and hopefully get healthier. Like Christian Duffy, I think, can make a world of difference on the offensive line and how that looks and things coming together. To me, the other thing to talk about with the offense is just a lack of explosion. They don't have the explosive plays that they had last year, and we all think of Deuce Vaughn, and certainly he's a huge part of that. But it's also that they have Malik Knowles, and even Kate Warner made some fairly explosive plays last year too. It
was very explosive last year out of nowhere.
Yeah, they had explosion, and we remember the offense like early in the year, especially when Adrian Martinez was playing quarterback. That's all they had. It was explosives or nothing. And that's not really what the offense is this year. Again, the overall output and what they've been doing has generally been fine, but they really need a home run hitter, and that's where like Keegan Johnson. It just I don't know. I was telling Cole at the game, like I'm kind of at the point where I like if they get that out of him, if they get some explosiveness out of him, great. I think that'll be gravy. But we're 3 games in. We keep hearing about like lingering injury issues, and they're just, he had one catch at great hands. It was a really big play. He got a big first down, but we're just not seeing that. And Mizzou has a great secondary. I watched him just like one-on-one a couple of times when it looked like we saw like, oh, there's no safety help over the top. So I was watching what he did. It seemed like they were able to be pretty physical with him, and he wasn't creating much separation. So I don't know. I'm just not going to expect. I had gone into the Mizzou game being like, okay, he's going to be there. He'll be as healthy as he's been this year. We're going to start to see some of the explosion out of him. I'm just you got to show it to me before I give you the benefit of the doubt on that. Whereas before I was kind of like, benefit of the doubt, he's going to be the explosive guy. I need to see it now before I get there with him.
Well, he's super duper important because he does provide that explosive element that they certainly lacked the last 2 games, it felt like. And look, if you're not explosive, you got to be able to run the ball, because then you got to sustain drives and have that success rate. Kansas State didn't do either, so it seemed like, in a way, they were fortunate to have 27 points on the board. When you're not explosive and when you're not running the ball, you don't have those 2 things. You really have very little to rely upon. Adrian Martinez really helped provide the explosives last year too, especially on the ground in the first half of the season. They need Keegan Johnson. I'm being told now like it's a case where he's going to be better each week, and though he had very little impact on the game, he did take, I think 12 more snaps than he did against Troy. So just from a snap count, it does look like he made noticeable improvement. We just got to see him actually, directly impact the game now. I think that's probably the next step for him. And, in defense of Keegan Johnson, every time they throw the ball to him, something good happens. So maybe they just need to be a little bit more insistent upon that.
Well, he was only targeted one time.
He's clearly got great hands, but I didn't see. I mean, I don't know if anybody else. Derek, you were watching from the press box. We're watching from the stands up top. Like, I didn't see Keegan Johnson running wide open.
I don't know if I was harping on it as much. I'll let Cole go, but I'm just saying, like, at least when he is targeted, good things are happening. Now, you need to get to a place where he gets more targets, and part of that's on him, part of that's on Klein, part of that's on Will Howard.
Yeah, he's targeted one time in the game, and it went for the 2-yard. It was a big catch, got him the first down. But I think I was saying at one point, John, I think even when they were like the 3rd and 15 late in the game, it was like, just throw it deep to Keegan and hope you get a PI or something. Like, maybe he can make a play. But nothing worked out there, and they absolutely need him. And what's frustrating as a K-State fan is, like, we talked Keegan up all offseason. I did. Malik Knowles was always banged up. Last year was really his first fully healthy season. It feels like K-State's number 1 wide receiver going into the year every year is always banged up at some point. Like, he's supposed to be your most dynamic weapon, and they're not getting anything out of him right now, and he's absolutely crucial to this offense. Phillip Brooks has been good. Jaden Jackson's been good, but Keegan Johnson brings a different level of explosiveness to this offense to pair with Ben Sennett then as well in the running game, which leads me into a question. Guys, you talk about the explosive plays. Now, I will say they have 18 plays of 20 yards or more so far this year. They had 64 last year, so they're about on pace for that. But it feels different, and the schedule's about to crank up, so it's going to get harder as well. Do they need Avery Johnson on the field more to get a few more explosives?
It's possible. So I at least would have let them, and I know we've kind of talked about it off air, I would at least let Avery Johnson in on some of those 3rd and shorts when he's the culprit of why they got it into 3rd and short. It'll help you with the running game a little bit. They did a good job of having the Avery Will thing work without disrupting rhythm. I will say that, and that's hard to do. So kudos to them for that. My quibbles would be man, if he gets you down there, let's see if he can get you across the finish line for a first down too. That's my only quibble. But then what do you do after that? I get it. It's a tough back and forth kind of a seesaw thing. I also don't get the point of willingly being 10 on 11 because you still have Will Howard on the field as well. So yeah. I have an issue with that. I'd like to know the thought process behind it because maybe there is a good reason for it. I just don't have it. So it's a head scratcher for me at the moment. But, I'm not an offensive coordinator, so I would just like to see the thought process behind that at the end of the day. And another thing I wanted to point out, we're sitting here, we're picking nits, picking apart this offense. It's struggling. Same time, scored 87 points the first 2 weeks, just scored 27 on Missouri, and more yards per play on Missouri this year than they had last year. So, I'm struggling a little bit to be of the fact that we're as critical as we are right now, just because coming off a loss, when technically from a yards per play standpoint, they were more successful on Saturday against Missouri than they were last year.
Well, the Avery conversation is definitely one that needs to be had, and a lot of people are having it. A lot of people, I have seen plenty of discussion about the fact that, Will was out there, and I would be less bothered by the fact that, Will was out there if it weren't, by the time they were really doing it, Will was hobbled. So, there's less threat. Because to me, the answer would be he's out there when Avery's in the game because you're trying to keep them at least paying somewhat of attention to a trick play possibility there, or leaving that out there, or trying to set something up. But that, with the condition that Will was in, by the time that they were doing that late in the game, that was not going to be a legitimate threat. That wasn't happening. But I think then the problem probably is they're giving Avery a limited package, and everything that you practiced in that package involved Will Howard being out there on the field. So that would be my guess, right, as the plausible explanation to why that was the way that it was happening.
Yeah, they probably practiced the package like that with Will Howard on the field, and this is another theory to toss out, Will Howard's hobbled, right? Do you really want him running back and forth on and off the field? You might not.
He does have to hobble, though, clear out far wide to the boundary. So it's,
but you can casually get out there. But
well, do you think? Avery's a true freshman. Do you think it's also to help in the huddle, the play call and getting everything organized and having him out there?
Yeah, it could be. Like I said, I'd like to know the reason because these guys aren't dumb. I'm sure there's a good right there.
But it is frustrating and confusing a little bit that they were bringing Avery in on 2nd and long all the time. But you would think you'd want him in on 1st and 10, not 2nd and long. And then they take him off the field when you're a 3rd and 2. I think about the play where K-State's up 24-20, guys, I believe. And it's the 4th quarter and they roll Will out to the left and they're on the 43-yard line. K-State's on 43. And there's one read. It's only Ben Sennett. The receivers were blocking downfield. They had it draped. They draped the coverage. If you have Avery Johnson run that, you have the threat of him running, but you don't have him on the field. And I just feel like they need to let him throw the ball. Avery Johnson wasn't brought in here just to be a running quarterback. He's a dynamic passer. So trust him. And defenses are going to be cheating on the run so much. I just kept waiting for him to unleash him, let him throw it. Cause I feel like it's gotta be open, guys. They've ran him so much now. Trust him. Let him make a play with his arm as well. Give him at least a run-pass option.
And he CC'd, that was the thing that bothered me more than Will being out in the formations. I would have just loved something designed to at least give him a pass option to where that, even if that's just a threat, and now he's rolling out, and you've got to worry about that threat, you've cleared up a little bit more space for him to run, because he just needs a little bit of space, and he is your home run hitter. He is your home run threat. There is your explosive offense. He's faster than Adrian. That's going to be your big home run threat that we were talking about from the beginning of last year. So, yeah, I would have definitely liked to have seen that. And I think, look, the coaches know it better than I do because they're watching him practice, but we hear all the time about how poised he is. And he certainly looked very poised when he was out there against Mizzou. That's your 3rd college game, true freshman, skinny kid out there, but looked like he met the moment fine in a huge road game at Mizzou. So, yeah, I would have liked something. And maybe that just wasn't in the package at all, but I would have to imagine that there was at least a play or two that were in the package there that they felt like he could handle. They would have some option to throw the ball. So, yeah, even down to the goal line, the play because the play before the delay of game, right? Avery got you down to the 3.
Yeah.
And I would have liked to have just roll him back out there again on the 3rd and goal play. I would have preferred that.
That wasn't even the first one, but there was multiple times where I'm I think it was 3 or 4 times it felt like where you're in second and longer than what they had on third. And he basically gets you into the ballpark of being able to strike on third down and then goes off the field. I just would have liked him to get a chance because I think they were stopped on a few of those third downs, had less answers. Especially with the way they were running it, if they really wanted to keep you run game, I think you'd need to leave an Avery on third and short.
I just think about guys like that third and goal at the 3, down 3. Avery gets him to the 3-yard line. You leave him on the field, and they got Will on the perimeter twice for touchdowns that were called for holds. Get Avery on the perimeter there from the 3-yard line. You could even call it 4-down territory, but get him on the perimeter and also give him the option to leak a guy out there out of the backfield or the tight end on the backside. Give him a pass option as well. It's going to be really hard for the defense to defend Avery in that situation with his speed from 3 yards out with the ability to also pass. I'd like to see him give him a shot in those situations.
Again, we're belaboring the offensive point here because I think some of the stuff is just hard for us to make sense in our head, so we're trying to talk through it. But again, at the end of the day, you scored 27 on Missouri. I think you should probably feel good about it.
They're fine.
Yeah, but I'm just because we're talking offense here, picking it apart for the last 15 or 20 minutes. But technically, you look at the scoreboard, and you're probably more disappointed in your defense.
Yeah, I mean, I think they're going to be fine on offense. We're talking, and all of this, by the way, this is me and us grading on a Big 12 championship scale, like getting back to Arlington. We're grading on a Big 12 championship scale here, not a, hey, win 7 or 8 game scale. And so that's an important distinction. And the last thing I will say to cap off this discussion is just, I will say this in defense of the coaching staff and a positive for the coaching staff. They have been perfectly willing to recognize Avery Johnson is a special player and they need to use him. And the fact that he was out there against Mizzou like that they are even...
Yeah.
What's that?
And he's not redshirting. Yeah.
Well, yeah, of course. That's what I'm saying. I appreciate the fact that they're there. I appreciate the fact that Avery Johnson is going to be a part of this offense and that they are going to use him and that they realize that he is somebody that can help. I appreciate that they're doing that. Let's just, start to tweak it now and hopefully allow him to do more coming up this week against UCF. Speaking of that, we'll start to turn the page a little bit, but football is back. Another week of football this week. DraftKings Sportsbook is keeping us in on the NFL action with great offers every single game day. New customers can bet $5 and get $200 instantly in bonus bets. Throw $5 down on any of this week's epic matchups to walk away an instant winner. And DraftKings isn't stopping there. All customers can take advantage of 2 new offers every game day this September. Football's more fun when you're in on the action, so download the app now and sign up with code KCSN. New customers can bet just $5 to get $200 instantly in bonus bets only on DraftKings Sportsbook, an official sports betting partner of the NFL with code KCSN. The crown is yours. Gambling problem? Call 1-800-GAMBLER. Visit www.1800gambler.net. In New York, call 877-8-HOPE-NY or text HOPE-NY. In Connecticut, help is available for problem gambling. Call 888-789-7777 or visit ccpg.org. Please play responsibly. On behalf of Boot Hill Casino and Resort, licensee partner Golden Nugget Lake Charles, 21 plus, age varies by jurisdiction. Boy, Ontario, I'm sorry to report. I hate to tell you, Ontario. Please sit down as I tell you this. It is void in Ontario. I hope you were sitting down for that. See sportsbook.draftkings.com/football terms for eligibility, terms, and responsible gaming resources. Bonus bets expire 7 days after issuance. Eligibility and deposit restrictions apply. We're back after this.
Thanks for listening to KC Sports Network. Make sure you download our new app. Find it on the App Store or Google Play. Just search KC Sports Network.
Okay, so one concern here. We've had plenty of concerns, but another concern. K-State comes out of the game a little bit beat up. Will Howard was limping around. It seems like he really downplayed the injury post-game. Obviously didn't feel like it was enough to take him out of the game. Daniel Green was clearly playing hurt there, was in the injury tent for quite a while. We are still wondering about Christian Duffy, John Pastore. Where are things at from an injury standpoint, TY? What can you tell us?
Yeah, it's good. It's tough. The skeptical side of me wonders how Will Howard felt like the day after or even today, because he was laboring pretty hard, and what happens when the adrenaline wears off, right? So this week of practice, I'll be curious of what's going on with Will Howard. I would anticipate him being the starting quarterback. I haven't heard anything to suggest otherwise. So I'm just going to assume he's healthy enough to do it. How healthy can he get between now and Saturday? That's probably the debate. But I am going to go into this week assuming he's good. He's healthy enough to go. Christian Duffy sounds like he can at least be limited this week. I mean, Chris Kleiman, unprovoked, basically said we're getting Christian Duffy back. So we'll see what that looks like. When Uso came back, he was limited. When Keegan Johnson came back, he was limited. So I would imagine it's on a limited basis. Daniel Green, I'll be curious what the update is on him throughout this week. I think there's a chance that he's probably someone that you probably will be on the injury report this week, I think. He played through it on Saturday. I'm not sure how much longer or how much more he can play through that. I think that's something to keep an eye on moving forward. John Pastore, I think that's probably a week-to-week thing as well, just because of the nature of his injury. I think it's concussion-related, I'll just say. So I think that'll be interesting how that unfolds because those are always touch and go.
What about Clifton, DY, because he becomes more important with Daniel Green banged up?
Yeah, I don't think you see him this week. I think that would be too soon.
OSU the target day, you think, after the bye?
I think after the bye week is the soonest that we'll see Jay Clifton. I'm not saying it's a foregone conclusion he's out, but it's not a foregone conclusion that he's there probably either. I think that's probably the target date, and we'll see how much how close he can get there.
Who's after Oklahoma State?
Is that Tech?
Yeah, it's Oklahoma. After Oklahoma State, it's Texas Tech. Yeah, it's October 14th at Tech.
I was going to say, I mean, if you can survive UCF, I mean, Oklahoma State just put up 7 points on South Alabama on Saturday. So, I mean, hopefully the defense could survive, even if it were without those two. But yeah, Texas Tech, you probably start to need them a little bit there. The early Vegas line, I saw it as high as K-State -8 this week against UCF. I would imagine that a lot of the same things that were kind of working against K-State from the Sharps' perspective this past week when they were all over Mizzou kind of tilt back in K-State's favor here, where they're going to look at it and say, well, you have a quarterback injury still at UCF with John Rice Plumlee being out. You got K-State returning home with a home crowd under the lights in a game that they're going to want to get back on the right foot after losing last week. I imagine that most of the line is geared up around those sorts of factors here. But early thoughts on how you're feeling about this matchup against Gus Malzahn and company.
I saw it at 6.5. I wouldn't be surprised that it's already moved to 8 because, like you,
Circa had it at 8 in the early lines on Twitter.
Wrong. I saw it open at 6.5. I think on DraftKings. No, I'm like you. I think that the people that do this for a living are going to like the spot for Kansas State because you got a pissed off football team going back home against the team that's without their quarterback. Usually when you lose a guy, like injury-wise, that next week, it's like you go all in as a team. You get together and you have one of your better performances, but then reality sets in after that you don't have the guy and you come back to earth a little bit. I think that's what we could see from UCF. I think their offensive output last week without John Rice Plumlee is probably a little fool's gold, I would suggest. But yeah, from a spot-wise, when you look at where UCF is for this game, where Kansas State is for this game, I would suggest I would be surprised if the Sharps would not be all over K-State.
Saw Bill Connolly has K-State as a 5.5 point favorite in his SP Plus model. I think he projected a score of like 30 to 24. And it's going to be a hard game. I mean, UCF to me is I think UCF is a top 25-esque team. Now, without Plumlee, I don't know how much that changes. Plumlee hadn't been very good the first 2 games. He threw 4 picks, 2 in each game. So McClain is a veteran quarterback. It was interesting. Malzahn brought in 2 transfer quarterbacks in the offseason, even though he had John Rice Plumlee as the starter. I don't know if it's because he knew he was injury prone and how much they were going to run him, but they at least have a veteran guy that started at USF, albeit didn't put up the most impressive numbers. That's come in. It seems like the team has confidence in him. We'll see. They got talented wide receivers and they got talented running backs. They're going to be equally as fast as Missouri. There's maybe even faster. That they're a better team than Missouri. I'll just say that. So Yeah, it'll be a test, but you just got to win it. You got to figure out a way to win it, and you got to get to that bye week. They desperately need the bye to get healthy.
I'm not convinced they're a better team than Missouri just because they don't have the same kind of defense or the same kind of depth.
Yeah, I don't know. I think Mizzou might be a little better, or at least they're pretty comparable.
Yeah,
and in term caliber, not
especially
necessarily.
And no Plumlee, like that's hard to.
It's tough. Yeah, I just don't know much about this. The backup QB. That's a really tough one. With John Rice Plumlee, I thought UCF was kind of like a 25 to 30 sort of team in the country. So it's a hard one to figure out. But Cole's right. It is going to be a tough game. I mean, that will be a tough game. This is not a game that anybody should be overlooking. I don't think anybody is coming off loss last week, but this will be a difficult game.
It's their Big 12. It's their first Big 12 game. It's the inaugural game for them. They're going to be fired up to try and prove a point. Gus Malzahn knows what he's doing. He's been to Manhattan before as well. So they'll have a game plan. They'll figure it out. The blessing in disguise for them. It also probably helps K-State is they were able to get a game under their belt against a team like Villanova with McClain and a quarterback so they could work some of the kinks out. But also K-State got film now on what that offense looks like with McClain at quarterback and how that maybe changes things. So yeah, we'll see. Defense is going to have to be ready to go. I mean, I didn't even mention it, guys, but just shifting gears real quick back to the Missouri game on the defensive side of the football. Yeah, I did want to highlight, obviously Burton got his 117 yards or whatever it was on 6 or 7 catches. But what really was a buzzkill is Theo Weiss, Mookie Cooper, and Marquise Johnson. They came into that game with 5 catches for 27 yards on the season through 2 games. They had 11 catches for 193 yards against K-State.
The explosives weren't exclusive to one person. They just a lot of botched communication, a lot of big plays. That's what that was. I will say, if you want a optimistic point of view, is you got to play an offense with a running quarterback right before you play UCF, who does a lot of the same things just from a general style standpoint. Those offenses are kind of composed very similarly.
I should also say, I mean, I talk about Theo Weiss and Mookie Cooper that way. I went back to the recruiting profiles of those guys. I mean, Luther Burden was the number 1 ranked wide receiver. Mookie Cooper was a 5-star, and a lot of boards went to Ohio State, transferred to Mizzou, and Theo Weiss was a 5-star. You could argue they had 3 5-star receivers out there, albeit the production hadn't been there to date. But, 27 yards through 2 games, and then they have 193, those 3 against K-State, and 17.5 yards per catch. That was tough.
It's a combination of, I think, 4 guys getting their first start against Power 5 team in the secondary. So I think Chris Kleiman mentioned he thought they panicked a little too much, and that's a sign of inexperience. So I thought that was that. And going back to it, I think Drinkwitz and these guys were probably putting together a scheme and a game plan for about 6 months on what to do and how to get those guys the ball.
Agreed across the board there. I think we will see the secondary get better, and communication was not good. To play devil's advocate a little bit on the running quarterback thing, I will just say Brady Cook, that was like late second quarter, right, that he got banged up, and then they kind of had to just abandon the quarterback. He was not nearly as mobile at that point, and that's when the offense came back down to earth. So they didn't. Who knows how much Mizzou scores if Brady Cook stays healthy? And I get on the other side, who knows how much K-State scores if Will Howard stays healthy? So both teams are dealing with it.
Yeah, absolutely. And my argument was getting to prepare for like something like that ahead of time is nice.
Well, I will say though, K-State, Brady Cook wasn't dicing them up with the running game. The threat of him running though certainly helped their offense. But outside of the 36-yard run by Cody Schrader, the running back that he busted in the 4th quarter, Missouri's longest run for the game was 7 yards. So K-State once again did a stellar job defending the run. They just got to shore up some of the communication errors in the passing game. Can't give up 356 to Brady Cook.
Yeah. I thought, Cole, you made a very astute point, this being the Big 12 opener for UCF. That is a team, athletic department, and fan base that is very confident, very brash, and very much wants to make a statement. So motivation will not be in short supply for them. I'm sure they've had this game circled for a long time.
Yeah,
go play.
And K-State fans need to bring the energy. It's easy to feel down in the dumps after a game like the Missouri game, but this is a huge game. Like, you can't just look at like UCF as a group of 5 school anymore. Like, you got to come in fired up, 7:00 kick, and you got to, help lift these guys, because everything you wanted is still on the table, as you started off the show with, John. I mean, Big 12 championship, I think part of what helped me cope a little bit with Saturday is just going through the Tulane experience last year. Like, you can lose a game like that. You can look bad early in the year, and this team and the coaching staff has shown they can bounce back and recover from that. And that's what I hope to be the case with this team as well.
And there's a good avenue there with your schedule, because you get a bye after that, get some guys healthy. And not that it's going to be simple. It won't be. But you get Oklahoma State, who looks very gettable.
Yeah, and I guess, I don't know. I certainly do not. I have not this whole time viewed UCF like just some group of 5 school. I mean, I don't.
Well, I haven't either.
Some adjustment, I think, from the general crowd.
Yeah, I haven't either. I mean, I think I said after the TCU Colorado loss to Colorado that UCF might be their toughest home opponent in Manhattan. So I have a lot of respect for UCF, Gus Malzahn, and what they're bringing in Manhattan. I hope the fan base in general does, because I will say, I think part of the meltdown, this didn't lead to K-State losing the game, but I think part of the meltdown from the fan base after the Missouri game is, I think there was maybe a little bit of, I don't want to say arrogance, just the expectations for K-State winning that game handily were probably far too high. And I get it. Eli Drinkowitz is kind of a buffoon and everybody makes fun of him, and they should. It's deservedly so. But we talked about it before the game. We expected that to be a close game. And now Missouri, over its last 7 home games against Power 5 schools, all 7 have been decided by a combined 20 points. I mean, every game is close there. So expected it to be close. And I just feel like a lot of I ran into a lot of people who are like, oh, K-State by 2 or 3 touchdowns. And I'm just like, that's not happening, guys. Like, they're going to come in inspired, and they've got some talent. So I think that led to part of the fan reaction as well that didn't help things.
The 40-12 win last year was a little deceiving, and I don't think everyone realized that.
Yeah, well, I mean, clearly, like, if you listen to this show, we all did. But some of it too, Cole, I would just say, I mean, it's, again, back to, I guess we'll just end the way we started. It's the fact that it's a regional rival. You don't get this opportunity to play them very often, so you want it really badly, because if you go in and you sweep that series, win in their place, and beat them 40-12, like, you're really punking them in the only opportunity to play them for who knows how long. So it was just this is a realignment conversation, because it's the shit that realignment robs you of. You don't get to go do that every year. And then obviously in this 2023 world where everybody's very online and very confident and yelling at each other back and forth, there are a lot of digital checks that have been written too. So it's just, that's why you get such a meltdown about it.
Those are your digital checks.
Oh, I am far from the only one, but yes, and certainly I had some.
I will say that the manner in which it happened too, having it done by an SEC record long field goal, that probably played into it.
Yeah. But I mean, hey, one final thought here, guys. Mizzou freaking rushed the field beating you. I mean, it's a statement of where the program's at. Mizzou rushed the field, and Brandon Kiley, who's a well-respected St. Louis media member, called it Mizzou's biggest win in a decade. So, I mean, that's where your program's at. You were Mizzou's biggest win in a decade, and they rushed the freaking field for beating you. So
most Missouri media that I heard after the game in the press box shared that same sentiment, though. So I think it's almost consensus.
Well, what's the art? Like post 2014 SEC championship game.
Yeah.
What have they? I mean, they haven't done anything. They haven't sniffed relevancy since then. So it's correct.
But I do think they have a great shot of winning 7 games for the first time in Eli Drinkowitz's career this year. So they could strive for 7. It'd be like the strive for 9 for Matt Campbell, which will never happen again.
There'll be a fortunate bounce. We'll see which way the ball bounces, but a fortunate bounce for maybe 8. I mean, this is a team to beat Arkansas and South Carolina last year.
Yeah, I mean, I think they're probably 8-4. I think that's
probably 8-4. Yeah, I think they're going to lose to Memphis on Saturday, guys.
Good.
I'm serious.
It is possible.
They just presented the team with the Super Bowl trophy on Saturday. They brought the Super Bowl trophy they created.
Yeah. Everything that I said about last week being the Super Bowl, it played out exactly like that. They rushed the field. Look how much that game meant to them, what they had been building up to. This is the classic letdown spot, and Memphis is not trash.
Again, I will go back to realignment discussion. Mizzou cared more because it was a regional rival here. They would.
Okay, State lost to Tulane in the same spot last year.
They miss They missed the old Big 12. Mizzou. Great to remember what it's like to go to Columbia, Missouri. What an experience. What an experience.
I feel a little bit better. I was feeling pretty bad the last couple of days after that loss, but this was almost a little therapeutic.
Well, I would agree with that. I probably needed a little Cole. Did I need a little bit of therapy at about 3:00 on Saturday?
Yeah. I think you probably did. It was also an interesting mile walk back to the car with you, me, and Casey.
I mean, so here's the thing on that. I guess since we're going down this road, what the hell? Derek, this to me, so right, like I used to go to road games when I was growing up. Like my dad and I would typically go to maybe like one a year. And so there are a couple things with that. One, K-State was in the midst of winning 11 games basically every year. That stretch six times in 7 years, they won 11 games. So like you didn't lose even on the road when we were going to some of those games. So I hadn't experienced that a ton. I got a little taste of it. I was in Lawrence in 2004, nightmare when you lose the streak. I was in Lawrence in 2006, nightmare right after Ron Prince beat Texas and you're riding high and you lose that game.
You stop going to games, man.
Well, I went to plenty of wins, but I'm giving you the losses. Like I experienced 2 really bad losses where I remember gut-wrenching walks to the car and being yelled at and cursed at and whatever. Don't let them tell you it's highbrow in Lawrence because there was plenty of it. But then I go to college and I went to Nebraska in 2007. I don't remember there being a ton there. I think both fan bases were pretty down on their teams at that point. But I hadn't been to like a road game outside of 21 Kansas. I went in 2021 to Kansas as a fan. But there's 10 years in there where I'm just working. So I'm not showing up as a fan. I'm not in K-State gear. I'm not in the stands. You don't take crap from anybody. You're media guy. I go to the 21 Kansas game where you knew what was going to happen there. That was going to be a win. There was really no stress involved with that. This was like my first real, true, like hostile road game in, I mean, I would probably take it back to, I guess, like 2007 Nebraska. Like, so it had been a long time since your boy had experienced that. So, well, it's a part of the deal. It was just like, oh God, I forgot about what this part actually feels like. So yeah, that sucked.
I will just say, John, that TCU 2022 prepared me for any battle to march into, and that's why I was so calm.
Call up that experience last year in Fort Worth. You want a touch of irony, though, and I'm not trying to throw any jabs here, but the whole cheering in the press box thing at Kansas State last year that certain people were embarrassed or disappointed by. I had Missouri media to my left in the corner of a press box, and they were literally cheering when the field goal went through. So just a touch of irony there, because Mizzou would never do that.
Couldn't be, DY, the best journalism school in the country. We're Mizzou, man. We got the elite journalists. Surely there was no cheering in that press box. Those elitists out there. So
I'm sure we'll get a great column on Power Mizzou about it. I'm sure we will. I look forward to reading that this week. All right. Guess we'll wrap it up with that. Take care, everybody. We appreciate you. Hopefully you're making it through too. Make sure and get your 360 vodka and your Ben Holiday bottled and bond bourbon. And we will talk to you all soon. Thanks to Nick Springer behind the scenes. For Derek Young and Cole Manbeck, I am John Kurtz. Thanks for listening to Fremont. Take care, and we will talk to you soon.